you're watching this video, it is likely because you have a loved one or a family member or just a friend who is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, or you're concerned that they might have that. And living with someone, being in relationship with someone who has this disorder or who has the symptomology around the disorder is one of the most frustrating experiences that you can have. In the situations that I've experienced with this disorder, people are just at their wits' end. I mean, you never know what you're going to get in interactions. Things could be great, just wonderful. You're thinking, okay, today's going to be a good day. And then out of nowhere, bam, this deep, intense emotion comes out, even attack towards you. And you just have no idea that it was coming. So the analogy of walking on eggshells is often how we refer to borderline experiences. It really messes with the nervous system of those in community with someone with this disorder, because you're always aroused, hyper aroused, thinking, okay, is somebody going to, what's going to happen? This emotion could come out of nowhere, and when it comes, it just envelops, it like takes over the whole room, everyone in the room, and it creates this sense of tension and intensity, and no one quite knows what to do or how to manage it because it's so dominant and so intense. So it is tough, and we're going to be covering this in this episode so that you can have some tools and skills for how to manage this in your life and in your relationship. My name is Monica Maurer, and I am a licensed therapist, and I have a lot of experience with borderline personality disorder. And I also the director and founder of the Center for Transformation. Our center exists to help you create connection in this lonely and disconnected world. And I tell you what, it is a lonely moment when you have a friend or a loved one who has borderline and they explode. You experience them initially as, fun and great and connected, and you're starting to let your nervous system relax around them and feel safe. And then all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, they become your enemy and begin attacking you and go into this intense spiral that then creates such a feeling of disconnection where you felt connection before. And over time, we say the transactions create this energy that just continues to erode the bond of the relationship that you once had. So it's very disappointing. It's quite overwhelming. And as I'm thinking about this, when I was a teenager, I experienced this with a boss, and I didn't know what it was. My first jobs were in restaurant work. I grew up. My grandfather was a restaurant owner, and he did banquets and such. So I grew up in that industry. I always say from the time I was 6 years old, my cousins and I were working at the festivals and at the banquets and in the restaurant. And so I immediately went into that as a teenager as well. And so working in a small restaurant, I loved the environment. It was family owned, and the whole family, was there, and we all became great friends. I love restaurant work. I remember telling my mom coming home one night, I just love it. I feel like these people are, my best friends, like they're my second family, because we work so hard together, but lots of fun, lots of laughs, lots of jokes. And the owner at this restaurant, he was just such a gregarious, kind, charismatic man. He was so generous, and he just was a charmer. He would he would be fun and funny with us, and we just enjoyed him so much. And then for the community, when they would come in, hey, come on over, let me tell you this joke, let me, let's talk about this, hey, do you want a pizza, let me give you some food. Or he was just super generous and kind, and everyone loved him. But what would happen sometimes is he would get into a mood or a funk of some kind, and you didn't know when it was going to happen, but when it did, he would be angry and mean, and he would, bite our heads off, and we, and then he would fire someone just off the cuff. No, you're fired. And it was strange because we didn't know when to expect it or what the rhyme or reason was, but it would just be some days, and it was rare. It didn't happen all the time. More often you would get the fun-loving, gregarious side, but then other times you would get this, without any warning, this alter ego almost would come out. And as a teen, I didn't know how to deal with that, and thought, what something's wrong? Like, what's wrong? Did I do something? Is this me? Is this the person who got fired? Yada yada. And we would joke, okay, so and so got fired 3 times or 5 times from that job or something like that, because then when we would calm down, he would, take that person back or whatever, or try to make it right, apologize. But it was a cycle that was happening, and now as a therapist, I realized there was some kind of a borderline cycle that would happen, that it would create this intense emotion for him that then spilled out. And so we say as therapists, there's a lack of internal control, a lack of internal locus of control, and something from the external environment will trigger emotion that will then kind of bleed out, out to the relationships around, out to the community around, and I think creates a sense of the person feeling badly about themselves. They don't want to do that, but then they did it, so then it creates this spiral for them that then doesn't allow them to come out of that. And so if we consider that all of life is somewhere on this spectrum, all of life, all of our behaviors, our disorders, our way of being, our emotional world is somewhere on the spectrum of chaos to rigidity, then a borderline, a person who's dealing with borderline diagnosis is going to be over here in the chaotic realm. And if that person then goes into rigidity with skills and trying to manage that chaos, they can respond and behave for a certain amount of time in a healthy, adjusted, life-giving way. But more often than not, that is kind of they're white-knuckling it, and they will quickly go back over into the chaos. And they have an internal chaos that then comes out as external chaos. And so that internal chaos is oftentimes caused by something not integrating. And so it could be a transgenerational trauma that's coming down the pike. We say that borderline is genetic, and so it's passed down through the generations. We would say that the brain of the person with borderline is chaotic, and what is happening is that brain does not integrate information, and the way that brain perceives is oftentimes based on a faulty perception or a confabulation of the true events, in which the person takes offense very, very easily, because their emotion, it's like their brain is misfiring around the amygdala, the fight or flight center. And so the amygdala is overactive. And so when information comes in, that part of the brain interprets the event as if it is a slight or an offense to them, when really, there may be nothing in the environment that's actually happening. We may even say that they are perceiving, like they have extrasensory perception to emotion, because their emotion, I'll oftentimes say, is like their emotion is like their nerves on the outside of their body, and they're perceiving everything through this emotional lens. And so they are looking at the slightest facial, the facial nonverbal that they're getting from a family member or a friend or somebody in the community. Or they're picking up on something that was said, and then they're interpreting through this lens of it's about me and something they don't like about me, when actually it could be nothing like that. There could be nothing that you're intending rude toward them at all, but then they're interpreting it through that lens. And when they interpret it, it's as if you cannot tell them that it's opposite than that, because their brain is telling them, no, this is true. This person said or did or thought this about me. There's a lot of mind reading that goes on with borderline personality disorder, where the person, because they perceive it emotionally, they believe it 100%, and then they act on it, and you cannot tell them that reality is different in that moment, because they're so hijacked in that experience. So when you're dealing with someone like that, when you are in relationship with someone like that, sometimes you might want to say, I'm done, I'm out of here. And that's really, your prerogative. If you feel like you have to have a boundary around that, because it's something you can't manage yourself, because it's harming you, it's causing your nervous system to go into fight or flight, and then causing you physical, emotional problems, psychological issues. Maybe it's interacting with the way that you experience life, and you're going into an addictive cycle because of this. Then you do have to protect yourself. You have to do what you can do to create change for yourself. However, a lot of us are in situations that we don't necessarily see a way out of, or it may be that the benefit of staying in the relationship is more than the risk of getting out of the relationship. And so if that's true, then you are in need of figuring out how to manage or have the best interaction that you possibly can with that person, to try to affect change for the relationship or change for the person, but protection for yourself. And so if that's the case, then I have a few things to say that I think could really help you get through these situations more successfully. The tendency is to shut down or to go away, or to become, we call it like a possum, fear-based, and kind of retreat and hide. But it doesn't work, because the person, as you avoid and disconnect, they get more and more and more intense. And so as you experience that, and unsuccessfully, it creates kind of the spiral into chaos in the relationship. And if there are children involved, it can be so damaging. So here are a few tips that I think can be really helpful. First of all, when it comes to borderline, you really want to validate the person for what they're experiencing. So what's happening is their amygdala, their fight or flight center, is hijacked. And in order to get that calmed down so that they can become their truest, best self again in relationship, you're needing to validate them, not because you believe what they're saying is true and right and that they should feel that way or should be acting this way, but because in order to calm them down, you're needing to help them know that they're not alone, and that you actually get it, what they're going through. And this can't be fake. It can't just be, lip service to them. It needs to be that you actually are entering into that space and going, man, this must be really, really hard for you. So by validating, again, you're not agreeing, you're just saying, I can enter into that emotional space with you, and I can say, I get it. I get what it must feel like to feel what you're feeling right now. And I can only imagine how overwhelming it is. Now, validation has to come, we say, before comfort, right? Because comfort is, hey, it's not that bad. Like, it's going to be okay. If you try to talk to them like that, they will feel patronized. Because what you're basically saying is their emotional response is crazy, it's out of line, and you're just trying to, put them down by not validating that their concerns are real. And so you really want to kind of match intensity with them and say, I get it. I understand. This must be so hard, even if it's about you. Oh my goodness, I totally understand. I did something that really hurt you, and you're experiencing this, and it's really, really harmed you and really hurt you and really cut you to the core. You're just heartbroken over this experience. And so I oftentimes say, you can repeat exactly what they're saying, but you want to match that intensity, or you can repeat it verbatim, or you can repeat it in summary. Either way, you have to do that again and again and again until their brain is soothed, until they feel so validated that you see almost a letdown, like a relief come. I asked somebody the other day, did you see, after they were validating their partner, I said, did you see the relax? They said, yeah, I saw the person, sit back in their chair and just kind of, let out a breath, like, finally somebody gets me. Somebody understands what I'm going through. Somebody understands that what I'm experiencing is really tough and really hard. And so now I can relax and be more vulnerable in the relationship again. So that's what we want them to see. And if we validate, then it will, and we see that letdown come, then it will be time for confrontation. Because the person does need to be confronted. If we only validate, then we're just people pleasing them, and we are just kind of patronizing them and not really being in true relationship with them. We want to be in true one-on-one, mutual-minded relationship with the person where we say, hey, this is what this felt like for me. And if you do that before they are calmed back down, they will not be able to receive it. But if you can validate to the point that they can receive it and they're calmed back down and they're more in a calm state again, even if it's a day later or something like that, after their nervous system kind of resets, and you say, hey, when that happened, this is how that felt to me, and this is what it was like. Now, be careful here, because while that has to happen in order for you to be in an interdependent, not a codependent relationship with the person, if they are narcissistic as well, which borderline and narcissistic do go hand in hand, it's a cluster B, the cluster B disorders, personality disorders. If that's happening, then they won't be able to receive the feedback, but that's not a reason not to give it. And that's why this is kind of becomes a cycle in relationships you have with these people, because they need the feedback, but they can't often manage it. So as I spoke about in the narcissism video that I just did, you may want to look at that. You do need to use a sandwich approach with them, where you talk about how meaningful the relationship is to you and how you like it, and you want it, and you want to have the connection, and then you give the confrontation, and then you give more reason you want to be in the relationship. And it's from this authentic, genuine viewpoint. But the confrontation does have to come. We do need to say, hey, when you acted like this, this is the way it impacted me, and I really need this, because you are a part of this relationship. They are not the only person in the relationship. Relationships are mutual. Relationships are reciprocal. And we have to fight for that. We have to go toe-to-toe with a person in love. We have to set boundaries in love if we want to see relationships change. And we have to see relationships change. Otherwise, we're living in dysfunction and codependency, and that is never going to be life-giving for either party. When someone with borderline is controlling relationship through their emotion, it's not helpful for them or anyone else. They hate themselves and they hate you, and that cycle is going to continue, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so the need is to become skillful. We call it becoming, in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, we call it becoming effective. When we are effective, we do what's needed for the situation we're in. Not the situation we wish we're in, not the one that's easier. These relationships are very, very difficult. But like I talked about with my boss, back in high school. He was an amazing man. I love him dearly and loved him dearly, and we all did. Yet there was these moments where none of us know what to do, and we would look at each other like, and we would hold our breath and we would dread. And I'm sure he hated it that we dreaded him, because he was such a kind and wonderful person. Yet we didn't know how to manage it. And so now as a therapist, I'm saying, hey, this is how we do this. This is how we stay connected. We have to grow who we are internally, and then we have to become effective for the situations that we're in with these people, so that we can love them well, love ourselves well, protect the children, protect the community from this person who has really a disorder that causes their amygdala to become overactive. So let's be effective. And DBT says 3 types of effectiveness. We have objectives effectiveness, where we go into a situation saying, I know what I need to get out of this situation. I want to get peace for the family, or peace for our connection, or whatever I'm trying to get out of the conversation. Then I need to have interpersonal effectiveness, where I am making the person continue to like me. So I'm creating a scenario where I'm not calling them names or putting them down so badly that they don't like me anymore, but I'm actually sandwiching a relational approach so that they can receive the feedback and at the same time feel good about themselves and like me, still continue to like me and feel like I'm their advocate, that I'm on their side, and that I love them, and that I'm going to speak the truth because that's the right thing to do. But then also acting in a way that makes me feel good about myself. So personal effectiveness. I want to act in a way that helps me feel like I'm the person I want to be. I'm living according to my morals, my values, my ethics for how I talk to people and how I interact with people. So these are some great ideas for how to handle and communicate and deal with and really thrive in a relationship with someone with borderline personality disorder. Please check out my last episode on narcissism, and my next episode is going to be on gaslighting. I look forward to seeing you then.